In this video, we're going to talk about keyword match types. We're going to talk about some of the games that Google plays to try and trip us up. And I know that sounds like it's us against them, but it's 100% us against them. Okay. Once I explain match types, you're going to understand what I'm talking about. So when you're running a keyword campaign, when you're running a Google search campaign, there are 4 different types of keyword matching that are built into the Google Ads platform. Now, Google doesn't come right out and tell you this. There's no part of the setup process where they say, hey, what type of keyword matches would you like to run? Instead, what they do is they just default to something called broad match. And what that means is anything somebody searches, if it is broadly related to what you are advertising or selling, then your ad is going to show. What I don't like about that is if your ad is showing for something that's not relevant, it leaves it open for somebody to misinterpret your ad and click on it and cost you money, who's not really a customer, or maybe even accidentally click on it and cost you money, and again, they're not a customer. And so when I teach people to build AdWords campaigns, I always have them start with the most narrow focused match types possible and build out their first campaigns using just the first couple levels of matching. And then as they get better and more professional at this, they expand it out farther and farther, okay? So I'm going to explain to you all these match types so you understand what they are. So when you build your campaigns, you know how to structure these and which match types to use. So Google has these 4 types of matching. When you build your campaign, you can set the type of matches if you know how to find that and if you know what you're looking for. The first type is something called broad match. The second type is called modified broad. The third type is phrase match. And the fourth type is exact match. Now, I said this before, broad is the default. And what this means is it's the most broad relation to your particular keyword you're advertising for in order to show your ad. And so we want to be very careful of that. Okay, now I'm going to go through this kind of in reverse order and show you how these match types actually work. So the first one that we want to look at is exact match. Now, exact match is actually how most people think that Google Ads works. And it's not really commonly used, but it's what we think that we're using. So what exact match is if I'm selling men's shoes and somebody comes in and they actually type the search men's shoes, then my ad is going to show. Now, you'll notice at the very top here where it says square brackets, men's shoes. It's got bracket, men's shoes, bracket. Now, that syntax, that punctuation with the square brackets is how you know in the platform that you're running an exact match keyword. So if you're running exact match, Google actually will put these square brackets around that keyword term to let you know that your ad's only going to show when somebody types in exactly that. Now, years ago, they kind of opened up their exact match to include some typos and some misspelling. So if someone types in men's shoes but forgets the apostrophe, it'll still show. If they type in men's shoes without the apostrophe S, it'll probably still show as well. So, but the main thing you need to know about exact match is it's going to limit the number of searches. So what I mean by that is you're only going to show your ad for people that are actually searching for what your keyword phrase is exactly. And so in order to get more searches, you're going to have to come up with more search terms and put them into the platform, which is going to increase the work, the monitoring. And so there's a lot more management time if you're running a lot of exact match phrases. Typically, people that run exact match are going to run a very large number of those because they're trying to guess every variation. So that's when you're going to run 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 keywords in your campaign if you're running purely exact match, which is not a bad idea, but I typically teach people that we want to open it up to exact match and phrase match when we're first starting out, and I'll explain why here. So phrase match, you'll notice there's quotation marks now instead of the brackets. It says men's shoes, but under quotation marks. So phrase match means that the phrase is somewhere in their search term. So I might have said that backwards. The search term that you want to show for is somewhere in the phrase that they typed in. So men's shoes has to be contained in the sentence that they type into Google in order to show your ad. Potential searches: men's shoes cheap, formal men's shoes, used men's shoes in Salt Lake City. Okay, now all three of those phrases contain the words men's shoes. Now there's nothing in between the word men's and shoes. The phrase is just there together. You'll notice that there's words before, words after, and words before and after. Now, all of these are going to be closely enough related that in a phrase match, it's going to show our ad. Now, the keyword has to be in the phrase in the exact form that we put it in. And this is also a great way to capture any of the geo-targeted searches. So men's shoes, Salt Lake City. Men's shoes, Sandy, Utah. Whatever you want to add in there, phrase match is a really good way to capture your keyword plus whatever they add. Now, something to be careful of, maybe you are selling formal shoes. Maybe you're a tuxedo rental place and you're selling formal men's shoes and you're renting shoes, and somebody types in men's shoes cheap. They may be looking for Walmart or Target or one of these discount shoe stores. They're not looking for formal shoes, and so that's not a good customer. So as soon as you leave exact match and go into phrase match and beyond, you're kind of losing control over how specific these searches are. And so you want to be careful about how much you open it up. Okay, so exact match was just the exact words. Phrase match contains the phrase somewhere in the search. The next one is what we call modified broad, and you'll notice it says plus men's plus shoes. What this means is the search has to contain the word men's and the word shoes somewhere in the search, but not necessarily in that order and not necessarily together. There could be words in between. So that opens it up even further. So some potential searches would be men's inexpensive shoes, men's formal shoes, local men's wedding shoe rental, get rid of shoes, smell in shoes that are men's. So those are all very, very different searches, one from another. But because we're running modified broad, so it's not quite broad, but it's broad, but it has to contain the words that we said it has to contain. So the words are in there in all four of those searches, but the relevance has kind of gone out the window. Now, again, a lot of people do not know about modified, phrase, or exact. And what they end up doing is they end up running it on the default, which is broad. And we'll look at that in just a second. But the only time that I want you to really use modified broad is when you've maxed out your volume and you feel like you're not getting more searches than the exact and the phrase match. And now you're needing more and more clicks. And that's when you should kind of open it up to your modified broad, your broad matches. So you should exhaust potential phrase match and exact match first. And then if you don't have the volume, that's when we go into modified broad. Now, broad match, pure broad match, which is the default, I never recommend that. I never run it. I wouldn't spend my money on this. And here's the reason why. You'll notice it says men's shoes. No quotations, no brackets, no plus signs, just straightforward. Well, if you've ever run AdWords or Google Ads before, and you go back into your platform right now, you'll probably look at it and everything in there just no punctuation, no markup. It literally just says the normal words. If it just has the normal words with no brackets, no quotations, you were running broad match. Well, broad match opens it up to a lot of potential searches. Here's some examples. Men's shoes, women's shoes, formal dresses, man's flip-flops, horseshoes. All of these are broadly related in Google's eyes to the words men's shoes. I know this because I've seen these searches work like this before. Now, what happens when you run purely on broad match is a lot of times you'll run a campaign, you'll get a bunch of clicks to your website, and nobody buys anything. It's because if I'm typing in horseshoes and I want to buy a horseshoe game, and I see your ad that says, we have 50% off, check out tonysports.com, and then I come over there and Tony Sports is a shoe store, and I'm trying to buy horseshoes, then I'm not going to have anything I can purchase, and I'm going to go away. And now I've cost a click, but there's no conversion. Okay, so Google wants your money. That's why this is the default. You want to make sure that you know why you're running and what you're running. So in review, broad match, the default, the worst one to run. It's going to give you a lot of clicks, but they're not going to be very relevant clicks. And there's very few times when I would ever recommend somebody runs that. Modified broad is a good way to run at a high scale. And it's very broad, it's very loose, but at least you can get a lot of clicks this way. But the majority is going to be phrase match, where the keyword phrase is closely related. It's in that phrase in the way that you want it in there, and there's just a few words that have been appended on there. And exact match, again, is the best way. That's the highest quality. That's how you control and make sure that you are getting the click that you want. Okay? In the next video, we're going to talk about building the campaign, optimizing, and actually launching a campaign. So I'll see you in the next video.